Howdy, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Through the Gears. I'm Wyatt Watson, your host, as we get you set for the best NASCAR bets going into this weekend's action at Iowa Speedway. Excited because I will be at the track actually putting some action on these bets as well. And I'm thrilled to be back in the NASCAR garage over the last year and a half or so. It's been since I've been there, so I cannot wait for that trip. But I also was equally impressed with Bubba Wallace's win last week at Indianapolis. Hit a big bet for a lot of people at some at 16-1 before the race, some at 40-1 as well, pre-practice and qualifying. And he was someone I had on my radar for sure this weekend. And I would have bet him on my Twitter picks as well, even at the 16-1 number, but did not get to it and call it out before the race started. So for y'all who did get him, congratulations. And we're looking to bounce back this weekend in Corn Country. But I have a great guest this weekend, and we had him on the show earlier this season, and he is one of the best in the NASCAR betting sphere, and that is Dale Tanhardt, back on the show with us. Excited and thrilled to have him on once again, and can't wait for y'all to listen to this one and see who both of us have going into Iowa. We really thought similarly in this episode, and I think we can make some good profits with what the books are putting down right now. So without further ado, let's get some corn on the cob and let's get ready for Corn Country as we go through the gears. Joining me now is the man, the myth, the legend, back once again on Through the Gears. It is your favorite Dale Tanhardt. It's good to have you back on the show. And I looked on your social media earlier this weekend about the big Bubba Wallace upset this week. And I mean, first of all, what a race, what a win for Bubba himself, but what a win for some of us in our pocketbooks last week.
Yeah, man, I wasn't able to celebrate with you guys in terms of the bet, but I know a lot of people in the NASCAR betting community nailed that one, right? Bubba Wallace, 50-1, 40-ish to 1 early in the week, even before green flag, 16-1. Yeah, it was an exciting win. It was a very, it was a passionate win, right? With everything that happened post-race with Bubba and everything he's been through the last few years. But it's been a tough couple weeks for me in the betting side. It's been kind of stagnant. But I'm still happy. If you had Bubba, I'm happy for you because that's one hell of a ticket at 50-1. Even if you got it at 16-1 after qualifying, like that's a good hit. So yeah, it was a big win, and now we move on to Iowa.
Yeah, he was somebody I looked at before that weekend, even at the 40-1 number. I didn't have him, but I would have nailed him after qualifying with him starting second there, and then just having a strong race overall. I was just knee deep in getting work done for Frontstretch and all the content coming in from that Brickyard 400 weekend, as well as other multiple series like IndyCar and ASA, late models out in Anderson Speedway. It was a crazy weekend of racing overall. First of all, prayers are also up with Stuart Friesen with what happened a couple days ago for sure, and hoping that 52 team finds somebody to fill in that role for sure. But again, what a weekend of racing last week, but I am geared for Iowa. We'll be going to Iowa and covering out there, as well as putting in our bets going in. And there's really a three-headed horseman for the favorites this weekend, and that is Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, and Ryan Blaney. Larson and Bell at 5-1, while Blaney sits at 5.5-1 right now. Out of those three, Dale, who's the guy you're looking at going this weekend that could take it all?
Yeah, I think it's tough to hit a favorite early. Also, back to Indianapolis. Hopefully, no beer cans thrown on the track this time. This time in Iowa. I know. Look, the Iowa.
They'll throw corn. They'll throw corn on the freaking track.
The Iowa crowd loves some Busch Light, right? But hopefully they can refrain this time around. But no, I think it's kind of tough to bet a favorite early in the week when you have these guys like you mentioned, where their odds are, between 4-1 and 6-1, just about in every book. But if you really had to go somewhere, I look at Kyle Larson. If you go back and watch this race in 2024, he was on rails throughout the early portion of the race. had an issue. I think it was a loose wheel, had to come back down, carved his way back through the field, lost the track position again, and then got swept up in an accident after the second stage. So, Ryan Blaney led the most laps, arguably had the car to beat. But if Kyle Larson hadn't had the issues that took his track position away, I mean, he was just lights out quick. So it's been kind of an interesting up and down summer. They got some mojo back with the P2 at the Brickyard. You look at the short tracks, shorter racetracks in 2025, dominated Bristol, top 3 at Phoenix, probably gets a top 3 at Dover, if not for the late race chaos. Good at Martinsville as well. So I think Kyle Larson, you look at the short track program, you kind of look at the momentum boost from Indy, and you look at the one sample size we have last year, which is just one race at Iowa in the NASCAR Cup Series. I think Kyle Larson would be the guy I'd go with. Denny Hamlin really struggled here last year. Christopher Bell was okay, but that 5 car was unbelievable. I think if they start up front, keep the track position, they're going to be tough to beat.
Yeah, they just got to stay out of trouble and stay out of their own way, it seems like, at Iowa. Blaney, I would give some consideration to as well, though, because he had the second best car, no doubt, until what happened to Larson. And he was at a 6.5 to 1 number before on yesterday when I checked, and going up to 5.5. It's tough when you have Kyle Larson, who looked strong, who got his mojo back a little bit, it seemed like, at Indianapolis. Could have definitely stole it away from Bubba Wallace there and looked fast with his fresher tires and better fuel situation for sure. But Larson here at Iowa, if nothing happens to that team, it's going to be tough to beat. But there's other people, again, I mean, like a William Byron, who was coming on at the end of that race, because it did transition from this like kind of a golden hour start to a night race, and with the track cooling off, and his 11 to 1 number, I think some people could find value with William Byron. But as I've said in the last couple of weeks, William Byron just seems to have this summer slump for this team every other year, it seems like.
Yeah, Byron, you talk about Hendrick guys that have been slumping. Larson had been that guy, kind of got the mojo back at Indy, like I had stated, but William Byron has not gotten it back. I mean, how many times have we seen William Byron leading, running up front, runs out of fuel? He's run out of fuel twice, Michigan and Indianapolis, or he's been running up front like at Dover and gets involved in a wreck. So it's been a really, really tough summer for those guys. Actually hard to believe that William Byron only has 1 win in 2025, and it was by pure luck in the Daytona 500. When you consider these races like Charlotte, where he leads laps, runs up front, Darlington leads laps, runs up front, doesn't get the win. It's pretty crazy. So William Byron, I'm going to pump the brakes on, just because I just don't like where this team is at in terms of finishing races. They were good, like you said, in the later stages here last year. Ended up P2, kind of running down Blaney at the end, but that 12 car was just so versatile in traffic that Blaney held him off. But yeah, I mean, anytime you see William Byron 10 to 1 or better, it is very tempting. I mean, I bet him last week at the Brickyard, and Exhibit A of how the season's gone for these guys. So yeah, interesting for sure. But if I had to do something right now, I'm probably going to wait on William Byron to kind of see how practice unfolds.
Yeah, and another guy you could possibly wait on. I don't think his number's going to move neither here or there. It's his teammate right below him, Chase Elliott, at 12 to 1 via FanDuel. Chase just seems like he's been on a heater, it seems like, since Atlanta. I know he hasn't won since then, but he's been in contention, it seemed like, one way or the other, except for last week, really, at the Brickyard, it seemed like. But he did finish third here in the one race we had. He did lead 1 lap. But that finish, again, I mean, for the higher props, like a top 5 or a top 3 potentially, Chase Elliott with that value could be someone to look at.
Yeah, and one thing I've learned with Chase Elliott is they just refuse to qualify well consistently. So he's a guy that you can probably wait on for sure. You talk about waiting on William Byron. He's not the best guy to wait on because he qualifies really well. Chase Elliott is the exact opposite. They just cannot get qualifying down consistently. They qualify in the 20s way too often. Their race pace is always better, but when you see them not practice well and you see them not qualify well, For us bettors, it gives you an opportunity if you think the race pace will be as good as it has been for most of 2025, because you qualify deeper in the field, probably going to have a little bit of an extension on your odds before green flag on Sundays. So Chase Elliott, I've been in this trap a few times this year, and I feel like waiting is best for sure with Chase Elliott. You know, we can talk about William Byron. Waiting is good. Waiting is great for the 19.
Absolutely. I don't look at his race winning odds too often going into a weekend, but that is surely true. Going after that, I mean, you pretty much reach value town after that, because you go to your favorite driver, Joey Logano, at 16-1. I kid there. Chase Briscoe at 20-1, Tyler Reddick 24-1, who hasn't really been good on these short tracks. But then I stop here and I see Josh Berry, and the books they give a little bit more respect to him when we go to these short tracks, opening at 25-1 off of DraftKings. And I ponder betting this guy because he almost won the pole here. He's led a couple laps, finished top 10 with Stewart-Haas Racing. Now with Penske equipment and Penske winning this race last season, it makes me curious to see if Josh Berry can absolutely break out and have a great race for these guys and cash in on 25-1 right now.
Yeah, what's interesting is you talked about the respect for Josh Berry. He's kind of trending better or the same in the top Ford category as Chris Buescher, which is something you typically don't see. And Chris Buescher struggled here big time last year. Josh Berry was at SHR, and that whole SHR fleet was pretty sporty here last year, especially earlier in the race. I know Chase Briscoe had gotten in some trouble. Gregson probably could have had a better finish if he didn't get run over by John Hunter Nemechek early in the race. And Josh Berry got a top 10 in the 4 cars. So it's been a tough time for Josh Berry, though, since Las Vegas. So I've bet on him a few times. It has not worked out. Indianapolis was in the top Ford position on the white flag, and he ran out of fuel. So, yeah, you got to have some respect on the table for Josh Berry when we come to these short tracks. But, you know, I look at the momentum once again. I look at where that team is at, kind of looking like William Byron in terms of not just an inability to finish. But I think with Josh Berry, let's look at the practice times. You know that if Blaney is lights out quick, there's a possibility that could be the same for Josh Berry. I can't think of the right word, but carry over to the 21 team as well, being a Penske affiliate. So definitely worth keeping an eye on. But that top Ford price, I'm looking at 6-1, 7-1-ish. Not ready to pull the trigger on that. Maybe you go with the outright, but it's not often you see Berry at 20-ish to 1 range. You know, I'm looking at BetMGM right now, 22-1 outright. That feels a little expensive for a guy that has been in a big time slump heading into this particular race. So I know it feels like I'm fading everybody, but I think last year, one important note, you know, forget about Josh Berry for a moment. Practice really told the tale. You know, when you looked at the practice charts, Ryan Blaney and Kyle Larson, they also qualified 1-2. They were very, very good on the long run. That was indicated by lap averages, and they were the 2 best cars. So I feel like lap averages really were a big asset for this race in 2024. And I think they're going to have a shorter practice session this time around because it's not a brand new racetrack. They had a longer practice session last year too, which was very, very helpful. So that makes a difference as well. But I still think with the amount of laps that you can put down at a shorter track, lap averages are super important. So I think evaluating that and then making bets could be a better idea for some of these guys that we feel could be a little overpriced heading into the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. The lap averages is a very good tool, especially for this being one race. We don't have as much of a pool to choose from here from past performances, because before that we only had a very select few guys that have multiple years of experience on this track and the Cup Series. So, and even much less for the Xfinity drivers that we'll talk about way later. When I look at drivers that are way deep into the true underdog zone, I'm not going to go over everybody here. There's 2 guys that jump out to me. One of them being Alex Bowman at 50-1. Bowman got a top 10 last season at this track. 50 to 1 for a Hendrick guy is always very interesting to see for me, especially when I know it's not concrete per se, but his performance at Dover with a third place finish there was pretty good. And I think the books are kind of sleeping on him. And joining him now, he was at 60, now he's at 50 to 1. We talked about him before the show. It's Ryan Preece. And now that he's in that RFK car and he just got top forward at Indianapolis, I mean, he's been showing not just on short tracks, on the big tracks, that this 60 team is no joke, and now fighting for a playoff position. I think part of that can motivate this team to potentially do some interesting strategy to find their way to the front.
Yep, Ryan Preece is going to be the most popular bet driver this week. There is no doubt in my mind. You've got the quote circulating on Twitter from RFK saying he wants to kick everybody's tail. Not just win, he wants to kick everybody's tail. Everybody's going to look to the fact that he got his first Xfinity win here back in 2018. Maybe it was 2017, one of those couple of years when he was driving for Joe Gibbs part-time. It's a too good to be true situation. And look, I've been betting on Preece a lot in 2025. FanDuel in particular, they'll always hang a 3 to 1 or better top 10 line on Ryan Preece at different track types. And it's made me money. And in other days, like last week at Indy, where I didn't have a good betting card, that was my savior that kept me from losing. So Ryan Preece has been a very profitable driver for myself and probably many others throughout 2025. And he's been that guy. I mean, you could make an argument, though he's 40 points below that cut line, you see him closer to the front than you do Chris Buescher. And obviously, we know Brad Kay hasn't had a great year. We know they've been very inconsistent. They've had a lot of troubles. But Ryan Preece has been very solid. I mean, he floats around the top 10 at a variety of different racetracks. And you look up at Indy, and guess what? He gets the top 5, and he cashes a top Ford bet for a lot of different people, too. So now we come to a shorter track. Ryan Preece, all about the short tracks, right? And you want to bring back Iowa from his Xfinity days when he got a win here. You bring the confidence. You bring the Indianapolis interview when he was aware of Bubba's win, shifting the playoff bubble that puts him on the outside looking in. It's like the perfect narrative for him to come out and win, right? And I'm just going to say, I'm probably going to bet on him. I don't know how I can pass up 50 to 1 outright for a sprinkle and then top Ford at 15 to 1. He also has a great draw in qualifying. We've seen him have elite qualifying speed this year. He is a candidate to win the pole. He qualifies up in the top 5. Heck, even if he qualifies top 10, that 50 to 1 line is going to be gone. So I think there's a good CLV opportunity here as well. But I'm telling you, there's just no way he's going to win. There's no chance because everybody's betting on him. So I'm asking you, don't bet on him. Just let me bet on him, okay? Because if we all bet on him, we're all going to lose. So take one for the team and let me bet on Ryan Preece because he's been great for me all year long. But no, in all seriousness, analytically, in terms of the narrative, he is a great play for this weekend. And I don't know how I can resist. 50 to 1 outright, even an 8 to 1 top 5 is solid too. I think he could be a contender.
Well, you're getting me closer to potentially betting his outright there. I mean, his prop value, man, is great as well, and that's where I think you can be a little bit safer in case he doesn't pull off the win. I mean, his top 5 8 to 1, his top 10 plus 250, his top 40, which he cashed last week somehow, some way out of nowhere. It seemed like if you had that, I mean, he's top 4 a couple times, even at Martinsville one time as well, and would have been Talladega runner-up, which I bet him there too. That was pain.
Well, if he gets disqualified, if you bet on the proper book, then you still win. Even
that's true. I think FanDuel still gives you the money. I'm pretty sure. Depends.
Yeah, FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM do not acknowledge post-race inspection. DraftKings does it uniquely where they will pay out both, which is crazy, and it's awesome. But yeah, FanDuel, BetMGM, I think ESPN Bet as well, all pay out pre-inspection. So just an important note there.
Yeah, I always like that. Even if you get the winner and they get disqualified, it's always a sure cash anyway. So I'm I'm hoping regardless if he passes or not, Ryan Priest as well and could possibly do it. And you got me considering putting him on my card, but I will go straight into my card right now for who I think is gonna win this weekend. And I'll reiterate Kyle Larson at the 5-1 number. He is, like you said, he's on rails. This guy was great last year and probably could have led every lap like we saw at a Bristol earlier this season. I think that's what we might be in store for with Kyle Larson at that 5-1 number. And it's not going to get any better, I think, unless something crazy happens in qualifying. So I'd be willing to put about 2.5 units. My units is about $10 per unit. So that's the reason for that sizing there. And his best odd is on FanDuel right now. Secondly, I'll cover that with a Ryan Blaney bet at 5.5-1. I think as well he was just the second best guy, and it's kind of an insurance pick there with how good he was and going into a race that he could potentially go back to back in. Ryan Blaney at 5.5, he could potentially do well. I mean, he also led laps at Indianapolis and looked like he could have been on the right track if strategy played his way, but did not, unfortunately. Thirdly, I mean, it's tough. I don't really like this bet, but I feel like I have to with the value, and it could go. I don't know if it can go any higher or not, but that is William Byron 11-1. I'm there. I've been off of William Byron a lot, but when I go back and I look at how he ran at the end of that race, I think Rudy Fugle is decent at adjusting to the track. Now, that wasn't the case more so at the Coke 600 when Ross Chastain caught up to them in that race, and they had a strong car there. But this is a much different track, more like a Richmond style track, which William Byron has excelled there as well. And that's the track comp I really compared this track to last year when we didn't have any data. But William Byron was great at a Richmond style track, and he was great here last year in the closing stages. 11-1's not too shabby. And then again, I'm going to back up what I said earlier with Josh Berry at 25-1. I think now with Wood Brothers Racing and Penske Alliance there, Josh Berry is primed to potentially have could even be a breakout race for him if things go well and he shows that speed that I think that 21 team can show this weekend at Iowa. 25-1 is great. It's higher than his normal tracks, but that's what you get at Josh Berry with a short track racing prowess. So I'm going to go with Berry here, but Ryan Priest is on my radar, I think, for the whole weekend, depending on what happens with practice and qualifying. Dale, who do you got on your card?
Yeah, if I had to pick three guys, I'm definitely going with Kyle Larson. I'd love to just go Kyle Larson, Kyle Larson, but
10 units.
I mean, right, go all in. But we have seen them make mistakes in practice and qualifying, so it makes you a little nervous to hammer a 4.5-1 or 5-1 line for him. But he's got a great draw in qualifying. Car was so good last year. I can't reiterate enough. He's probably gonna. I mean, I'm not gonna say probably. The NASCAR Cup Series is so crazy, right? But I would expect him to qualify up front, and I think for the first time in a while, we have potential for somebody to just completely stink the show up. You know, we've had some good variety throughout the summer in 2025, but this could be the time where the tide changes and someone stinks it up with Kyle Larson. But if I had to pick three guys and two more besides Kyle Larson, I'm definitely in on Ryan Priest. I do believe that with everything building, I think this is what they've got circled on the radar over anything else, even more than Daytona, you know. And Daytona, they've got to have circled because there's RFK guys got to get somebody in if they don't have someone in by the time we get to Daytona. So I think for Ryan Priest in particularly, it is obvious this is a huge weekend for those guys. So Ryan Priest at all the lines we talked about, 50-1 outright, 8-1 top 5, 15-1 top forward, and a 2.5-1 top 10. I mean, that could be a hammer type of bet, you know. So I think you go Ryan Priest. And if I had to pick a third guy, I'll go back up the board, and I'll go with William Byron, kind of what you were talking about. 11-1. I feel like there's a really, really tight hold on these favorites and co-favorites. When you look at DraftKings, and they're all mirrored, which is not super common early in the week. But when you look at these three books, DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, you've got a strong hold between Larson, Hamlin, Bell, and Blaney, all between basically a range of 4.5 to 1 and 7 to 1. BetMGM has Hamlin a little bit a little bit cheaper, a better price, but not big on Denny Hamlin with how bad they were here in 2024. Yeah, you can say momentum is important, and it is, but they were real bad here last year. So I just don't expect a steep turnaround where they're competing for the win, at least at this point. Practice, as I've reiterated, will tell the tale. But I think Byron at that price, he's got the potential to sit on the pole, lead a bunch of laps. He's another guy that if he can just keep his track position, he's always tough to beat. We've seen it all year long, but they lose the track position and they never get the top spot back, it seems, or even top two, top three. So three guys that I had to pick: Ryan Preece, emphasis play; William Byron; Kyle Larson could be the dominator.
Yeah, I love those picks, honestly, and we're right on the same page with all those picks. I feel, and yeah, I agree with you with Denny Hamlin. We didn't really mention him, but it's just there was nothing to write about last year with his performance. I think 7.5 is a little bit. I think it's just steep because of his Dover performance, but he's kind of like we call Justin Allgaier on the Xfinity side, the concrete king. I think that's just Denny Hamlin's forte is racing on concrete right now, or especially on Dover itself, which he was 5-1 there, and he was 5-1 at Indy, and people thought he was going to do well. Then he crashed in practice and kind of ruined his day. So I think this is kind of gonna be a regroup style of race for Denny Hamlin. I think he's not gonna fight for the win, but he's just gonna fight for a decent finish and to keep the momentum up to possibly get into the points battle. But again, I don't see him fighting for the win either. But I like all of our picks there for our race winners. But going into our props, I'll lead it off here. I'll follow right with you there on the Ryan Preece props with his top 5 at 8-1. I'll put about a unit on that, but then his top 10 at plus 250 is insane value for how good this team has been at plus 250. I'd throw even 2.5 or 3 units on that one and go all in to get some good profits off another decent run for the 60 car, because he's looking for a magical moment here at Iowa again. And at this point, he has stumped the Stewart-Haas Racing numbers that he put up last season. You can't go off that because that's just non-representative of what he's shown throughout the season. He's fighting for a point spot, and hell, we were talking about that disqualification at Talladega. If he didn't have that, he would be right there in the bubble with his teammate Chris Buescher and fighting even harder for it right now. So he's looking. I think he's looking for the win now, and he's going to swing big at the tracks he knows he could probably do well at. That is Iowa this weekend, I believe. So I'll lead off with Preece there. I call Bowman out as well. His top 10 number is similar at plus 240. I think that's just great value for a guy like Alex Bowman to get a top 10 and 50-1 to outright win. It's kind of insane too. I don't think that's going to happen, but if you can replicate his numbers from last year, finishing 8th last season, plus 240 top 10 is a slam dunk. Brad Keselowski, another guy who got a top 10 last season, is at plus 175, going after the top 5. He's looking for a win himself, so he's going to swing for the fences as well, and I think he could at least hit top 10. I'm going to round it out with another top 10 guy who also finished in the top 5 last season thanks to a little strategy play, and who's pretty good on the short tracks. I think that's Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He played strategy to his advantage at the end of last season's race, held on to his track position to find a top 5, which that would be a 34-1 number going into this weekend. His top 10 number is also very respectable at 11-1. That's race winning value right there if Ricky Stenhouse can pull it off. So, and I think that team, JTG Daughtry, or rather Hayek Motorsports, whatever the hell they call themselves nowadays, I think they can do well and find their way to a good finish this weekend. I know you mentioned Priest earlier, Dale, but who else do you got an eye on for a potential prop pick?
Yeah, I like the legacy guys. I really think at a variety of different racetracks, we've seen Eric Jones and John Hunter Nemechek have speed. I mean, legacy is night and day different, on just from a pure raw speed standpoint than where they were here at this point in 2024. So Eric Jones obviously had a tough break in Indianapolis, blown a tire. Nemechek had a good, inspiring run through the tournament, almost made the finale or the in-season tournament challenge, almost made the finals. Has been good at a variety of different racetracks, kind of lingering around the top 10. So when I go to FanDuel, and they always have the low dangling fruit in the top 10s, right? Like Ricky Stenhouse, 11-1, finished top 5 here last year, as you said. Zane Smith, I tweet about it all the time. He's always the top 10 guy you want to bet. You're like, God, this kid is good enough. He runs around the top 10, and then it never actually happens. I think this weekend, the two guys to look at, not going to rule out betting on Zane or Ricky for that matter. The two guys to look at, Legacy Motor Club. Eric Jones has some more Iowa experience and some of the drivers in the Cup field. Their cars are good. Their cars are just flat out good. They're top 20 machines if they don't have issues. And so if you're going to give me 9.5-1 and 11-1 for or 12-1, I should say, for Nemechek, for a top 10 for guys that have top 20 speed, it seems like every week now. I mean, you can look at the driver standings. They're both top 22 right now. And if you think about if they didn't have some of the DNFs that they've had, like especially with what Eric Jones has had, they'd both be in the top 20 in points probably. So I think with how well those cars are running, if they don't make mistakes, they could be in the conversation for a top 10, and that would be a lick at those prices. Eric Jones, 9.5-1, John Hunter Nemechek, 12-1, respectively. So, yeah, love Legacy Motor Club for some props.
Yeah, I thought about them too, and they've been on my card every now and then on any different style of racetracks. That John Hunter Nemechek 12-1 is so tempting for sure to go with. I think I just want to, and you're not going to get that value if they have that speed in practice and qualifying. That thing's going to go all the way to plus 250, 3-1 number, 5-1 number. You're getting at least half of those.
That actually happened with Nemechek last week. Legacy they practiced really, really well. I mean, they were top of the board in averages. Nemechek was like 10-1, 11-1 range for top 10. Pretty sure on FanDuel he closed at plus 250 before green flag. So, yeah, it's very capable of happening again. And I think Nemechek in particular is probably better known for being a short track guy. So, yeah, can't say enough about how much Legacy has improved in 2025. And I think they're very, very considerable for betting this weekend.
I'll share this with you. Last week, I had SVG on the top 10 at 12-1, and then he ended up qualifying 11th. Looked great because I thought he was going to do great like he did last year in the Xfinity race, and ended up not happening. Still came for a top 20 finish respectively, but I mean, yeah, you're not going to get that price after the practice and qualifying, like we've said. So I fully agree with that. Sometimes like Ricky Stenhouse started 35th last year and ended up running all the way up into the top 5 with his strategy. So look at it after the sessions as well and see what the numbers are. And of course, gamble responsibly on the Cup Series. Now looking on the Xfinity side, I mean, we can wait and see what the numbers will look like because a couple of these, I mean, we've had a lot of Xfinity news break. Obviously, Austin Dillon's going to replace Austin Hill in the 21. And now, unfortunately, your fellow your fellow long-haired friend Josh Williams is no longer in the ride for the number 11, and I really hope to see him in another car soon for sure. But instead, you'll have Carson Hocevar in that car. And you have these two guys of Justin Allgaier and Connor Zillage both sharing the odds at the top here, about a plus 230, plus 260 kind of number. But when I look at it, I look even farther down into the guy who won here last year in Sam Mayer at the 12-1 number via FanDuel. And that's the guy I'm looking at to potentially go back to back as well at this track, and looking for his first win for not only himself but the newly rebranded Haas factory team this weekend. Dale, who do you got your eye on right now? Because of course I feel like those numbers are going to change a little bit once we get some of the Cup regulars on the sports books when it updates.
Yeah, DraftKings is lacking Dylan and Hocevar. FanDuel does have Dylan reflected, but does not have Hocevar yet. So definitely bizarre, right? I'm assuming that they'll get these right before Friday, so we've got a little bit of time here. I don't think it'll have a big ripple effect. The books will probably look at how that 11 car has run most of the season and think, maybe not. I mean, Hocevar's a Cup guy, he's super talented, but he might be. If I had to guess, I'd put Hocevar 15 to 1, 16 to 1 range, maybe around where Sheldon Creed, Brandon Jones are price wise. So, I mean, Austin Dillon at 10 to 1 honestly feels overpriced. And
yeah,
with all due respect, I just feel like hopping in that seat, with very limited Xfinity time over the past few years in a car that hasn't exactly been great at this particular track type. So I think AD might be a little bit expensive. And speaking of Cup guys, you have Chastain in this race to complicate it even more. Allgaier is a favorite with Connor Zilic, both at 2.5 to 1, which is crazy. I mean, Zilic is riding an unreal wave right now. I think that momentum finally ends, at least winning momentum, I think will end this weekend in Iowa. And when you look at Justin Allgaier, like, yeah, he's fantastic at these short tracks, but the conversion rate of him being a heavy favorite and actually executing and winning these races is so slim. It's just not worth betting at this time. Allgaier at 2.5 to 1, 3 to 1, because he's just so mistake prone. Whether it's his fault or not, wasn't his fault at Indy. When he is the favorite, he just does not win enough to validate betting him at these prices. Is my point. So I think you definitely have to look at Sam Mayer. Been knocking on the door at a variety of different racetracks. Haas, ever since they had this organizational change with Tony Stewart backing out, they definitely have not been as good on the Xfinity side. There's no question. Still haven't hit victory lane in 2025. But Sam Mayer, I think, does have the talent. He's a short track ace. That's what he's always been known for, even though he's won at a variety of different racetracks like road courses and mile and a halves. But I think this could be the time after a second place finish at Indy. This could be that determining run for Sam Mayer to get himself solidified in the playoffs, solidified as a contender, and get forward a victory for Haas. Would be the first win since the rebranding, I guess you could say, with the organizational changes. So Sam Mayer sitting at 12 to 1 is absolutely bettable before this weekend. I think they could come out here, qualify super well, practice strong, and he could go back to back. So I definitely look at Sam Mayer. I also look at Brandon Jones in that 15 to 1 range. Brandon Jones, you could look at whatever happened here last year or any of his time when he was not in a Gibbs car. This track just feels like a Brandon Jones track in 2025. He's been in the Xfinity Series for like 22 years. So he's raced here enough, I feel like, to figure it out. And we've seen Brandon Jones have many good runs, many close to wins in 2025. Did get the win at Darlington. This feels like a good track. It's always been a good track for Joe Gibbs Racing in the Xfinity Series. So I think Brandon Jones at that price range, 14 to 1, 16 to 1, is a good early bet as well. Also a guy that qualifies well a lot of the time too. So, and then I'm going to look at Carson Kvapil. You looking at 34 to 1. Remember, we talk about Ryan Preece, how everybody's going to bet on him. This happened a few weeks ago at Dover. Everybody bet on Carson Kvapil, and I said it's not going to happen because we're all betting on him. Now everyone's going to forget about Carson Kvapil. We're locked in on JRM. You got Chastain. You got all these Cup guys. Carson Kvapil, short track guy. This could be the day that he breaks through and gets his first win for Junior Motorsports and keeps that JRM streak riding into the summer, into the late summer, more into fall in 2025. So Carson Kvapil, 34 to 1 on FanDuel. Feel like it's a pretty good price early in the week. It's nice because you don't have to put a big bet on it. You can tread lightly and get a good payout if it does happen, and maybe some CLV as well if he qualifies strong, practices and qualifies strong leading into the weekend. So Carson Quapple, Brandon Jones, Sam Mayer. Give me some of the Xfinity normies here against a lot of the Cup guys, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, a couple other Xfinity normies that I'm looking at too is also Jesse Love, who did win at Rockingham before getting disqualified, and he had a great showing on a track very similar to this at Iowa. He's sitting also at the 12-1 number off FanDuel. That's someone I'm thinking of as well. And then, I mean, if your book does do a disqualification, but also if he has a great race, the other JRM guy of Sammy Smith, who's been kind of quiet since that half-assed kind of win at Rockingham. He did do well. I mean, he's done well also at Martinsville too, a different style of short track racing, but his 14-1 number is definitely good value as well to potentially look at. But I will agree that Brandon Jones call out for sure with this kind of year that he's had. I think they can go for big swings to get some more playoff points here going into the playoffs in a couple of races time. So we'll see what happens on both of those races. You also got ARCA coming up this weekend as well at Iowa Speedway, back-to-back weeks for them following the Cup Series, or really, I guess, in cities, that is, at IRP. But until then, Dale, it's great to have you again on this show. What do you got coming up for your content over the next couple weeks?
Yeah, I mean, just more of the same, man. You know how it is with the grind. You mentioned it earlier on, just pumping out as much as I can, just trying to keep an audience captivated and keep NASCAR interesting, because this is a good burnout time, right? Like, this is that time of year where, especially if you're traveling, I know you travel to a lot of the races more than I do at this point and where I'm at. It's easy to get burnt out, right? It's kind of exhausting. Every race is so dramatic leading up to the playoffs. So it's just kind of that grind time to keep with it, stay with it, stay relentless, and pumping out NASCAR content and IndyCar content as well. So I do the iRacing streams 4 to 6 times a week. I've got reels 3 to 5 times a week on TikTok, Instagram, and all that, and the betting stuff too. I've been kind of, like I said, it's been kind of a tough couple weeks for the bets for me, and that also assists in the burnout when you're not winning money like you were earlier in the year. And Atlanta was a crazy high for me because had Nick Sanchez, had Chase Elliott. Trying to replicate that as the summer goes on can be difficult. So just trying to keep on keeping on and have a good time with it. A lot of exciting things happening in NASCAR, not just with betting, but with a lot of news circulating, schedule anxiety coming soon. The new NASCAR video game, that's right up my alley, because I'm a big iRacing guy. So there's a lot to be excited about, and my job is to try to just keep everybody excited to the best that I can on my platforms, and hopefully you guys here can keep that going as well.
Yeah, I'm contemplating buying a newer Xbox Series X myself just to play the new game in the best quality possible. And again, your content's always fun to watch on the social media sphere. Atlanta, I'm about to say that Atlanta trip looked fun as hell for you too. So glad you could cash out there real well, man. I wish I called Jace there. So that was a great call out. And again, hopefully we do well here at Iowa this weekend to catch everything that I have to offer, as well as Steven Stumpf at the track at Iowa for Frontstretch.com. And then check out all of our other podcasts this week, as well as Happy Hour with Brian Nolan, Dalton Hopkins, Michael Massey, our guy Vito, and Mark Martin, who joined us and talked about the playoff format and how those talks have been going, as well as Austin Hill's wreck and more on that podcast. Also check out the Pit Straight with myself, Brian Nolan, and Alex Gintz there, talking everything open wheel from Laguna Seca and the Belgian Grand Prix. And check out Trey Lyle. Trey Lyle's bringing the heat, where he has Lee Diffie on that one as NBC starts their television broadcast this weekend. Can't wait to see all the guys there at Iowa this weekend. Thanks again, Dale, for coming on. I'm Wyatt Watson, and let's make some money in corn country.